Good morning. Okay. I was getting my phone up there and looking the way it's supposed to look. That puts me centered. Okay. Now you're happy, right? Numbers 31. Let's see what's in here. We stopped halfway, and I honestly didn't even look to see if there was much. I mean, there's a lot of verses, but sometimes there's just not much to get out of it, but there's always something there. So let's take a look. Division of the plunder. Okay, so in the last section, the beginning of chapter 31, we see Israel attack Midian for luring them into sexual sin and idolatry. And so in verse 25, there we go. I can see myself. Been outside working. Dirty. All right. So the Lord said, count out the plunder that was taken of man and beast, you and Eleazar the priests, and the chief fathers of the congregation, divided into two parts, between those who took part in the war, who went out to battle, and all the congregation. And levy a tribute for the Lord on the men of war who went out to battle, one of every 500 of the persons, cattle, donkey, and sheep. Take it from their half. And of the children of Israel's half, you shall take one of every 50. So they're going to give 10 times as much. And Moses and Eleazar did as the Lord commanded Moses. The booty remained for the plunder. There was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkey, 32,000 persons, and all women who had not known a man intimately. And the half that had gone out to war, right? They get their cattle, donkeys, persons, and from the children of Israel's half. And so there's all this stuff. And the officers, verse 48. So, I mean, that's the division of all the stuff. You can read it on your own. But it says that the officers in verse 48 that were over the thousands of the army, the captains over the thousands and hundreds, came to Moses. They said to Moses, your servants have taken count of the men of war who are under our command, and not a man of us is missing. So they went out to battle, and not a single man died, not one casualty. Therefore we have brought an offering for the Lord, what every man found of ornaments of gold, armlets, bracelets, signet rings, earrings, necklaces, to make atonement for ourselves before the Lord. So Moses and Eleazar received the gold and all of it, and 16,750 shekels, so 420 pounds of gold. And in 2019, when I taught this book, that was worth 10.1 million. So I don't know what it's worth today. And they had taken the men of war had taken spoil, every man for himself. They received the gold, etc. So here's this division. Now, it's just fascinating here because maybe we can glean some principles from this. Sometimes, we learn one lesson and we can obviously learn that lesson. But then when we have a similar but different lesson, we have to figure out why are they different. And to me, sometimes that's where 1 + 1 = 3, 4, or more. There's an exponential, multiplication of growth. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the parables of the minas and the talents. And what I love about that is that in the parable of the talents, I always I think I get these confused, but I think it's the talents. We see someone, and I don't want to get too off track. I want to get back to this because this is just a similar situation. But in the parable of the talents, people received 1, 5, and 10 talents. And that's a lot. Actually, you think 1 talent, that's like 75 pounds of gold or whatever is what's implied. And the one who hid it, we're not going to talk about the one who hid it. In both the minas and the talents, one person just didn't do anything with it. But the one that had 5 and turned it into 10, Jesus commended. The one who had 10 and turned it into 20, Jesus commended in like fashion. As far as we can see, and I don't think the Holy Spirit did this on accident, the person who turned his 5 into 10 and the person who turned his 10 into 20 received no different reward because they both doubled what they were given, proportionate to what they had. Where in the parable of the minas, everyone is given the same. Everyone is given one. And the one who turns 1 into 5 is put over 5 cities. And the one who's turned his 1 into 10 was put over 10 cities. And so, yet again, it teaches us, because I think if it was just one of them, we might have looked past it. But no, both of the parables show how God is judging in proportion to what he has given. If he has given you much, then much is expected. And he says that, right? So there's a theme. And if it was just one of the two. Now, here's an interesting one, because what we see here is God gives more to the men of war than he does to the congregation. He gives more to the warriors than he does to the congregation. Now, where am I trying to get to? Chronicles. It's in Chronicles and it's in 2 Samuel. I'm going to go to 2 Samuel. I think I can find it faster in 2 Samuel. In fact, I know it's in 2 Samuel. I'm not positive about Chronicles. Let's see here. And I think it will be, it's actually in 1 Samuel. What am I thinking? It's before David becomes accepted as king. Achish, Amalekites. So it's 1 Samuel 30. There we go. I knew where I was going. It just took me a little while. Now in 1 Samuel 30, they go out to battle, David and his men. The Amalekites had raided Ziklag, where David was based out of, and took away their women, took away their stuff, right? They just rob them blind. And so David goes out to battle. Well, they had just been at war. And so a bunch of the guys were too tired. And so David says, you guys stay back, guard the camp, while the rest of us go out. And so it says, now David came, verse 21, they've already defeated the enemy. So the battle's over now. David came to the 200 men who had been so weary that they could not follow David, whom they also made stay at the brook Besor. So they went out to meet David, to meet the people who were with him. And when David came near to the people and greeted them, then all the wicked and worthless men of those who went with David answered and said, because they did not go out with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we have recovered, except for that every man's wife and children, that they may lead them away and depart. But David said, my brethren, you shall not do so with what the Lord has given us, who has preserved us, just like he preserved the battle of the Midianites with Moses, and delivered into our hand the troop that came against us. For who will heed you in this matter? But as his part is, who goes down to the battle, so shall his part be, who stays by the supplies. They shall share alike. So it was from that day forward that the statute was made in Israel to this day. So here's interesting is, in Numbers, we see the soldiers receiving more than the people of Israel, than all the rest of the congregation. But the congregation did receive. The warriors received more. But in David, what we see is they're actually all warriors with David. So that's worth noting. They're all warriors. But the warriors that stayed back, they guarded the camp, is what David said. It wasn't just that they were tired warriors, but David specifically said they actually had a task. Their task was guarding the camp. Their task was just not as glorious. I mean, you think of soldiers and you're thinking the guy with the sword or the spear out on the battlefield doing their job. But guarding the camp was a needed task as well. And so David says, no, the soldier out there and the soldier back here, they're going to get the same. So what do we do with all this? I've never made this connection before. This is all fresh this morning, guys. And so as I think about it, these men here, they're all warriors. And the warriors shall receive a warrior's portion. Whether you're a warrior on the battlefield or you're a warrior having to stay back at camp. Corrie ten Boom, in the later years of her life, she was bedridden and all she could do was pray. But she felt that those were precious years where she did much good. In fact, I believe she even said that she did her most good in the years where she was bedridden and could only pray. Not go travel the world sharing her story, which was so impactful for so many people. And so she was a warrior, but she was a warrior who had to stay back at camp. She's going to receive her share, for sure, for the work that she had accomplished. Sometimes we might not be able to go out and share the gospel the way we wish we could. But you know what? If you budget and plan accordingly, you can support a missionary to go out and share the gospel. You can provide for someone else. And now you're a warrior back at camp in a sense. Yeah, they're the ones swinging the sword out on the field, but you're the one making it possible for them. And so I think the lesson for us from Numbers 31 here, watching the division of the plunder, is there are those who are just back at camp. Period. The congregation. They're not engaged in the battle. And there's a blessing there. I mean, there's just being part of the congregation. Just being part of the congregation, they received plunder. But you look at the portion that was being taken out, and the warriors got 10, the people of the congregation had to give 10 times as much away, right? And so the warriors' portion was greater. I don't think it matters if you're a warrior in the pulpit, or you're a warrior out sharing the gospel door to door, or if you're a warrior in the kids ministry, or you're a warrior somewhere else. But we all ought to be warriors. When I taught the book of Numbers, I was very excited to start the book. I remember being so excited because I just read some great stuff and I read these great books, and I just remember the beginning of the book, chapter 1, verse 3. Number them all, from 20 years old and above, all who are able to go to war. Warren Wiersbe made the point, how many today would be numbered? I have it jotted down there in my notes, right? How many people would be numbered today if they went through the church and they numbered those who are able to go to war? Well, remember, there's many different roles, many different functions. In the military today, there's a lot of people who are ground force infantry, and the mechanic knows how to fire a rifle. My friend was a mechanic, but when he fought in the Battle of Fallujah, he was just an infantryman, because at that point they just needed guys with guns and soldiers, right? And so we're all trained to be men and women of war, and we will receive our reward if that's what we set out to do, to be a true man of war for God and wherever we can. So, serving in the kids ministry, serving in the office, serving at the front door, wherever it may be, serving out in the world, serving as a light in dark places at your job place, whatever it may be a warrior. You will receive a warrior's reward. God bless you guys. See you tomorrow.